On May 14th, 2022, an 18-year-old male in Buffalo, New York, shot 13 people. This incident has one of the biggest impacts ever in our society.
11 out of these 13 people were African Americans, and this massive hate crime was live streamed to many people on the live streaming platform Twitch. And this event being live streamed can cause violence to be spread throughout the internet.
Even though this was taken down in just 1 minute, it's still such a huge problem because there's still screenshots of it and of this really bloody incident. Now, talking about live shows and things that exist, beauty pageants is one of the biggest problems in this earth in terms of media, where it impacts children's mental health and their emotional structure.
Adding on to beauty pageants really damage a kid on the inside because it deprives them of their innocence and, as you said, of their mental health.
With the beauty pageants, kids can learn the incorrect way and become insecure at a young age, which isn't good for them, especially when they get older.
It could deprive them of their confidence, and it could be really bad for them in general.
Sure, you bring up a really interesting point in how it like deprives them of like feeling good about themselves. So how does this impact them mentally or make them feel worse about themselves?
So it makes them feel worse about themselves because, especially at a young age, if children lose, they don't really know how to control it. So instead of motivating them to do better, it'll motivate them to become like more depressed and sad. And this could be really bad for them at such a young age as well because they don't really know what to do about it.
With all this stress and pressure at a young age, how do you think this can impact kids' lives when they're adults?
I think it might impact their lives when they're adults because they don't really know how to control like them being depressed. So maybe they won't really be able to fix that. And it'll just lead on to them when they go into adulthood. And this could impact their job.
I recently read this article about how beauty pageants affect people mentally, and I think it took a in California around like 1,000 beauty pageants, and it talked about how their mental health was, and most of them reported feelings of not good enough or really sad and depressed. Like really showing how these type of medias where they judge people can really affect even children. How do you guys think it affects maybe adults who where their brains are still not growing and they're less vulnerable to being addicted?
With an addiction at a young age, it causes no room for change because your brains are still developing and growing. And once you become an adult, it's like that's a permanent thing that's happening to you. And it's very hard to get rid of the addiction.
So, what if let's say someone who has not been part of beauty pageants, let's say their childhood, but thought they should go into it, let's say in their adulthood, and maybe they're not addicted in childhood. How do you think they'll be feeling that time?
Maybe it might affect them positively more than a negative way because then they could create a hobby and then they won't really be affected if like maybe if they want something in pageantry, they might get it because they won't really feel sad about it.
So you think that adults will have more likely understand
Yeah.
that the reason they didn't win this prize or win this beauty pageant. So that's why you think it's more worse towards children.
Yeah, and they'd probably feel more motivated to do better next time because children when they're depressed, they they won't think of being more motivated.
Children are supposed to have a stress-free life. So when people are adults and they go into pageantry, they have more knowledge going into it and they're more mature and older.
Talking about maturity, so Many teenagers nowadays also use many different forms of media, such as social media, for example, where they use Twitter, YouTube, uh, Facebook, and many of these teenagers actually making so much money from being an influencer, or even posting things on Twitter, like blogs or anything about them. They're getting paid for posting these tweets and posting videos. How do you guys think that really impacts the teenagers themselves mentally, and uh, how it really just affects affects media in general?
Well, the economy could be affected by social media because I know that a lot of actors have gained popularity from like TikTok, and this is how they got more jobs and went to being more wealthy. And also, small businesses help people on social media to create more money.
Yeah, there are many small businesses that have make accounts on social media accounts like TikTok, and their business grows just because of their social media account.
In talking about making a lot of money, there's this term known as a starving artist. I think both of you probably have heard of that. And you know what's really interesting? I think social media has also impacted artists so much. For example, the before you couldn't really advertise your art to the world. You could probably put posters saying to come to your museum. But let's say with social media, you can promote your art, and now with digital art in the rise and NFTs, advertising in social media is such a huge aspect to being able to earn money, and that's why artists are able to thrive in our society currently.
I agree with that because a lot of people don't really go to museums as well. So a lot of artists are getting their popularity from social media. It's one of the biggest parts of our lives.
I think that's a great way that social media can bring connections between people and their work and grow the economy by having people get more jobs.
In speaking of jobs, recently both of you probably have heard Elon Musk buying Twitter, and him changing how social media can look like forever. And you never know, he might buy some other random social media platform. But with Twitter, he can make so many changes and impacts on Twitter, and most of the influential population uses Twitter. Like for example, Mr. Beast, Pokimane, who are you guys watch are on Twitter, and he has talked about how he's planning to change Twitter and change the way people can earn money from Twitter, the way spam bots are no longer a thing, and how they want to decentralize all human beings. So, what is your opinion on Elon Musk just buying Twitter and maybe changing the world as you know it?
I think it's a good thing because he has a lot of control over Twitter and like maybe other social media platforms. So this could impact us in a good way, as you said, like spam bots. A lot of people don't like them.
I think this is also a good thing because it can make Twitter and maybe other social medias more for the people and not just bots and things like that.
I think also the social media platforms and especially Twitter with recent events, for example, the Russian-Ukraine war. Twitter and social media in general really promote like social movements and really great causes. For example, during the Russian-Ukraine war, the president of the not United States, president of Ukraine, DM'd Elon Musk to activate Starlink all over Ukraine so they can keep their internet running, which has helped them tremendously being able to contact for help and outside. So, how do you guys think social media is making a really good cause in terms of social movements and spreading awareness on problems?
Well, not a lot of people watch the news, especially young people. So, like social media, it, as you said, it does help spread awareness because people don't watch the news. And as you said, with the Russian Ukraine war, people could get help. And a lot of people on TikTok have provided people in Ukraine provide shelters and food. So a lot of people in Ukraine got help from social media.
Speaking of social media helping people, I think since social media is so prevalent in young people and teenagers, and that teenagers are the ones who strive for change in our society, social media can allow teenagers to find that change and try to do something about it.
So, in my personal experience about social media, it really has impacted my thoughts about this world because once I first, let's say, moved into America in 2018, I did not know anything about BLM or any of these social movements going on in the states and the social issues across the world. And able the fact due to social media, I'm able to understand all of these problems. And what's really amazing about social media is that BLM was actually started on Twitter, and that movement to support African Americans is just such such an important thing and something that uh, I probably wouldn't have many of us probably would have not known of without social media.
I totally agree with you on that because I didn't really know about BLM. And then I started to learn about it on TikTok and I got different opinions on it because I know why like people support it and why people don't.
Social media, because of these movements, can give teenagers and kids a connection to the world, which maybe they wouldn't have known because they wouldn't have watched the news. But social media gives them the knowledge about what's going on right now.
Dhiti, I have a question for both of you actually. How do you think social media has impacted your lives and has taught you many different things?
Well, I know that like with BLM, it's also taught me about LGBTQ because I didn't really know about that before TikTok and other social media. So I got more knowledge about it and now I know both sides of it.
Social media gave me the right to choose which side I wanted to be on, and it gave me more knowledge about things going on in the world, which I probably wouldn't have known if I wasn't on social media.
You know the fact that the entire world is connected in social media and anyone can access, maybe not anyone, but most people can access the internet, creating such a huge possibility of these movements being aware. But also, this also does show the real problems of social media and how propaganda and misinformation or even disinformation can be spread throughout social media.
With all this misinformation, it can really impact teenagers' minds, and with teenagers are usually naive and will believe anything they see on social media, and with consistent misinformation spreading, this won't be good for every teenager who's on social media.
I agree with that point because maybe a lot of like teenagers are insecure. So if they believe that like they're ugly and as they see it on like social media, they might believe that and that could affect their mental health.
Something I recently did a study on like social media algorithms, and I saw that social media in general, they recommend you things that are exactly for you because it's the for you page, and they don't recommend, let's say you believe Nike shoes are the best, but they won't show you why Adidas or any other company is good because they think that if they show you those other companies, you'll just leave the platform. And ultimately, the main goal of social media is to keep you on the platform for longer and be able to watch their ads and so they can generate revenue.
That's one of the bad things about social media because all the all they want is like attention. So you can't really see both sides unless you're like trying to see both sides because then it'll like show because it's for you.
Sometimes it's good to see both sides because you have the ability to make your choice and choose what you think is right. And with social media, it completely shows you one side unless you want to see both sides of something.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. This is also part of media, especially the fact that now media has to compete with social media. they they really are targeted to one side. Let's say, for example, CNN, they're lenient to the left, and Fox News are lenient to the right. And most people, okay, they're not willing to change networks. And let's say if you watch CNN, you would never. Most people wouldn't watch Firefox and see the other perspective. Or if you watch Firefox, you wouldn't see CNN and then learn the other perspective. Which can, since these media companies have to compete against social media, it's still such a huge it's still this misinformation is still being spread because they need trying to appeal to just one person. So do you guys watch media that much, like any form of media, and like and seeing how it goes?
I know I use TikTok a lot, so I see people spreading awareness and teaching me different things and giving me more knowledge about things that are happening in everyday life.
I
So
think that's another good impact of social media because it is teaching kids in a way that they've never been taught before because they don't usually watch the news or read the news.
do you think children should read the news and maybe learn more? Do you think they'll learn more from the news than social media?
I think in a way, kids and teenagers interact more with social media, so it can be more beneficial than reading an article because they might not have that interest in reading an article or gain knowledge from it. But with social media, it's something they're interested in. So if news goes on social media, it can be spread with teens.
I
Or like,
totally agree with you, Dhruti, because not a lot of people watch the news, as you said. So it's a good way to spread awareness of things that are happening in today's world. And as you said, it's a good way for kids to learn more things about the world right now.
learning about these kids is that something that's really interesting is that kids, going back to the Buffalo shooting, it's a really sad event, and how kids who might have been watching the live stream once it was happening, even though Twitch was able to take in a minute, you never know. It's probably most likely to be like adults, but must have been children because most people who use Twitch are teenagers and just young adults, and it's really shows how sad social media can really be. But we have also seen how it has impacted it and created amazing things for children to learn and even for adults to learn and able to even get even more jobs from social media.
And going back to the Buffalo shooting, that could have also been really traumatizing to the kids. But as you said, also does have a lot of positives, so it's kind of double sided.
I guess sided is one a huge part about social media, and the impacts and the negative impacts and the positive impacts are such a massive thing.
Social media having positive and negative impacts, this can change our world and affect us in the future.
As you can see after all of this, social media has many positive and negative impacts, and it could affect people socially. It could affect our economy. And social media has engraved itself into our everyday lives, and it will continue to in our future.